Not too long ago, I found out my wife, Isabella, had been cheating on me, with none other than my so-called best friend. I can hardly wrap my head around it, and to be honest, I'm still at a loss for words. Isabella and I met in college when we were both 18. From the very first date, things took off fast between us. We were saying, "I love you," before long. And honestly, I was swept up in it. Isabella didn't hold back. She made her feelings known, and I was more than happy about it. We shared everything. When her dad passed away from cancer during her senior year, I stood by her side through the hospital visits and sleepless nights. That tough period only seemed to strengthen our relationship. She used to tell me she'd be lost without me, even calling me her soulmate. I was crazy about her, so it didn't take long for me to pop the question a couple of years after we graduated. Life felt perfect back then. I had my dream girl, a great job straight out of college, and both of our families adored us. My best friend, Eric, who'd been like a brother to me since 3rd grade, was always there too, or so I thought. Eric was family to me. He'd gotten married and moved away because his wife had landed some big-shot job at a fancy law firm. But about a year ago, tragedy struck. His wife died in a car accident, and it completely destroyed Eric. He moved back, but he was a shell of his old self. I did everything I could to be there for him, though he shut most people out. I didn't fully understand what he was going through, so I suggested to Isabella that maybe she could talk to him. After all, she had experience with grief. I thought it might help. Looking back, I regret that choice more than anything. Before I knew it, Isabella was spending way too much time with Eric. They were going on hikes, seeing movies, grabbing lunch, just the two of them. They were acting like a couple. I didn't sign up for that, and it made me uncomfortable, though it seemed to lift Eric's spirits. What I didn't realize was that Isabella had always thought Eric was a dirtbag. Years ago, he had a reputation for sleeping around and even cheated on his late wife. Isabella couldn't stand him back then and used to question why I would even stay friends with a guy like that. That should have been my red flag. Suddenly, Isabella was the one inviting Eric to join us, acting distant from me, glued to her phone, avoiding any intimacy and coming home late. It was like she was a different person. Then one day, her behavior just got too sketchy. She was texting someone, and when I asked her who it was, she flew off the handle, calling me controlling. Feeling confused and paranoid, I confided in Eric about how close they'd gotten and how much it was bothering me. He waved it off like I was being ridiculous, like I was imagining things. That's when I realized I was being played, manipulated into thinking I was crazy. Not long after that, Isabella told me she needed space and was going to visit her sister for the weekend. My gut told me something was off, so I called her sister, who said she was expecting Isabella but hadn't seen her yet. I had a bad feeling, so I drove over to Eric's place late that night, and there it was, Isabella's car parked right outside. My heart sank. I snuck in through the back, my mind spinning, and that's when I heard it. Isabella's moans echoing from the hallway. I was shaking as I reached the bedroom door. When I peeked inside, there they were. Isabella, sprawled on his nightstand, a sight that's burned into my memory. I confronted them, and the shock on their faces was sickening. I walked out, ignoring Isabella's desperate cries, as my world collapsed around me. I drove off, tears streaming down my face, feeling utterly shattered. Since then, I've been staying at a friend's place, unable to eat or sleep, just replaying every moment over and over. Work's given me some time off, but the constant calls from Isabella, Eric, and our families haven't stopped. I've told my family I'm fine, but I haven't answered any of their messages. I don't know how I ended up in this nightmare. How could she betray us like this? I'm completely lost, folks. I don't know what to do. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. Thinking back, most of our marriage felt happy, which is why this has been so hard to let go. But the more I dwell on her betrayal, the angrier I get. I can't get over how Isabella snapped at me for simply asking her questions, or how Eric dismissed my concerns like they were nothing. Their lies and manipulation haven't just broken my heart. They've broken my spirit. And even though Isabella tried to act all loving, claiming she was thinking about me, I know now it was all a facade. She was with Eric, no panties on, which disgusts me when I think about it. She was intimate with both of us in the same night. I feel humiliated, used, and like an idiot for letting them treat me this way. The injustice of it all is too much to bear. My lawyers advised me not to do anything rash, warning it could hurt my case in the divorce, which Isabella has now agreed is inevitable. Even after everything, Isabella still won't leave me alone, sending me emails filled with excuses and even Bible verses about forgiveness. But honestly, how can she even think I'd consider forgiving her after all this? I've been doing my best to stay busy, trying anything to keep the pain at bay. But just when I thought I couldn't handle anymore, I got the news. Isabella was in the hospital after overdosing on prohibited means. I didn't know what to feel. A mix of relief that she was still breathing and confusion about how things had spiraled so far out of control. I'm left wondering how we got here, why she made the choices she did. It's overwhelming, and I'm still trying to make sense of it all, trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go from here. And just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, they did. I'm back at work now, focusing on anything other than the disaster that's become my life. Then, out of nowhere, I get a letter from Isabella. My first instinct was to rip it up, but something made me open it and read. In her letter, Isabella wrote about her therapy sessions, claiming they had unearthed some deep, hidden issues she hadn't even been aware of. She said her crippling low self-esteem had always been there, buried beneath the surface, driving her to seek attention from others, attention she didn't think she could get from me alone. She went on about feeling overshadowed by her sister, who had always been seen as the prettier one. Isabella felt unattractive, always comparing herself, and that's what apparently led her down this path of lies and betrayal, chasing validation from anyone but me. She apologized again, acknowledging that none of this excused her actions. She even suggested marriage counseling if I could find it in my heart to try again. But I didn't respond. By that point, I was numb, completely burnt out from the endless lies, the hurt, and the chaos. Instead of giving her more headspace, I focused on the divorce. Splitting up our assets turned into a bigger headache than I could have imagined. Sure, we had our own separate accounts, but our joint savings were tied up in ways I couldn't access without her cooperation. Even though I had contributed most of the money, it seemed like I was going to have to split everything down the middle. It was just another kick in the teeth. As if dealing with the financial fallout wasn't bad enough, Isabella decided to show up at my doorstep the very day she was served with the divorce papers. I have no idea how she even found out where I was staying. The moment I opened the door, it felt like the nightmare was playing on repeat. The tension was suffocating. She looked terrible, eyes red, face swollen from crying. Before I could even react, she was begging me to talk, to give her a chance to explain. "I just need to talk to you. Please," she said, her voice shaky, full of desperation. I didn't want to hear it. I wanted her gone. But she clung to the door, refusing to let go, practically pleading for a few minutes of my time. "Please," she said. "We can't end it like this. We need to clear the air." Against my better judgment, I let her inside. She started pouring out the same apologies, promising that she'd change. And then she started making the most absurd suggestions. She proposed a trial separation where I could date other people while she worked on herself. She even floated the idea of an open marriage, just one-sided, to benefit me. Or maybe we could move somewhere new, to another state, even another country. As if packing up and changing the scenery could fix years of betrayal and broken trust. As she rambled on, all I could think was, why? Why Eric? Why the lies? Why come back now? After all of this, Isabella broke down, admitting how lost she felt during the affair. Like she was in too deep to even think about the damage she was causing. Apparently, her therapist had helped her see that with her unresolved issues, she might have cheated eventually, no matter who it was. That hit me hard, knowing that it wasn't just about Eric. It was something broken inside her all along. "Did you ever even love him?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. "No, I never loved Eric," she blurted out, her words coming out fast, too fast. "It was just a terrible mistake." "And before him, were there others?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest, terrified of what her answer might be. She swore up and down that there weren't. She insisted this was a one-time lapse in judgment, a moment of weakness. But the trust between us had already crumbled. Her words felt empty, rehearsed, like she was saying what she thought I wanted to hear. We ended up talking for hours, though it was mostly her crying, begging for another chance, while I sat there feeling completely drained, emotionally numb. Eventually, I had to ask the hardest question of all. Is there anything else you're hiding from me? Her hesitation hung in the air, heavier than anything she'd said before. After a bit of pressing, she finally admitted it. There was more. It wasn't just an emotional betrayal. Isabella revealed that shortly after we split, she found out she was pregnant. The baby could have been Eric's, so she decided to have an abortion, thinking it would make things simpler, whether we separated or tried to reconcile. That revelation hit me like a freight train. I felt like I was suffocating, drowning in this never-ending wave of lies and betrayal. I can't do this anymore, I said, standing up, feeling like I was finally reaching my breaking point. You need to leave. She sobbed harder, pleading with me to reconsider, but I wasn't budging. There's nothing left to say. Isabella lingered, still crying, but eventually, she walked out, leaving behind a silence that was both a relief and a crushing weight. I sank back into my chair, everything hitting me all at once. How had we ended up here? Where had I gone wrong? The life we had planned, the future I thought we were building together, it had all fallen apart. The idea of divorce, which had once seemed like such a terrifying step, now felt like the only thing that made sense. The only way to stop the pain. Her betrayal was too deep, too raw. I knew I could never forget. The days that followed were a hazy blend of routine and numbness. I threw myself back into work, keeping busy from morning to night, desperate for any distraction that would keep my mind off Isabella and the wreckage of what our life had become. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it kept me going, at least for a while. Then, just when I thought I was finding some stability, I got hit with another curveball. My mom called out of the blue to tell me Isabella was in the hospital. It felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. As much as I tried to detach, the news stirred up a flood of old emotions I wasn't ready to face. She overdosed, but she's stable now, my mom said, her voice thick with concern. Isabella was in the psych ward under close watch. Why? Why would she do something like that? I muttered, more to myself than to my mom. The silence on the other end was heavy, filled with the same sadness and confusion I was feeling. I knew I had to go see her, not because I wanted to get back together, but because I needed some sort of closure. I needed to understand why. When I walked into that hospital room and saw her lying there, frail and hooked up to machines, it almost broke me. She was asleep, her face soft and peaceful in a way I hadn't seen in months. It was such a stark contrast to the chaos and pain that had consumed us lately. Sitting there, watching her breathe, the weight of our past hit me hard. All the love we used to share, everything we'd been through together. I left before she woke up. There wasn't anything left to say that could bridge the gap between us. No words or gestures could fix the damage. But seeing her in that vulnerable state softened some of the bitterness I'd been holding on to. Still, it wasn't enough to make me reconsider the path I was on. The divorce was already in motion, and no matter how much Isabella was struggling with her own demons, I knew that severing ties was the only way forward. Our finances were a mess, years of joint savings and dreams that now needed to be untangled. The thought of going through it all, dividing assets, figuring out who got what, was exhausting. My lawyer assured me it would be handled, reminding me to focus on rebuilding my life, one piece at a time. As I sat in my lawyer's office, reviewing financial documents and signing separation agreements, I felt a deep sadness wash over me. It wasn't just about losing Isabella. It was about losing my best friend, the life we had built together, and everything I thought we were heading toward. Each signature felt like I was letting go of another piece of our story, slowly unraveling the tapestry we had once woven with so much love and hope. One evening, as I was sorting through old photos and deciding what to keep and what to toss, I came across a letter Isabella had written to me years ago. It was full of love, full of promises about the future we'd planned to build. Reading her words, so filled with hope and affection, made me mourn not just the betrayal, but the loss of the life we could have had. It hurt to realize just how far we had strayed from those innocent, happy days. I had to come to terms with the fact that the Isabella the First fell in love with wasn't the Isabella the First was divorcing now. People change, sometimes so much that there's no going back. Letting go was my only option, no matter how much it hurt. And I was learning that forgiveness wasn't about excusing what she did or pretending it didn't matter. It was about releasing myself from the anger and bitterness that had taken over my heart. Filing that old letter away with the other remnants of our past felt like a small victory, a step toward healing. The tightness in my chest loosened just a bit. It was a quiet moment, but it felt monumental. Sitting there, surrounded by boxes of memories, half-packed and half-abandoned, I realized that moving forward wasn't just about separating physically or finalizing the divorce. It was about reclaiming who I was, the part of me that had been lost in the chaos of a broken marriage. The road ahead was still uncertain, full of challenges and new beginnings, but for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face it. The pain of the past would always be there, a bitter chapter in my story, but I knew it wouldn't define my future. As I began to settle into the rhythm of life on my own, my days became a blend of work, quiet evenings, and occasional get-togethers with friends who had been my lifeline through the darkest times. Their steady support reminded me that, despite everything falling apart, I wasn't truly alone. Over time, the sharp edges of my emotions started to dull. The sting of betrayal softened, replaced by a deeper understanding of the journey I'd been on and the lessons I'd learned along the way. Then, one afternoon, a knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. When I opened it, there was Isabella, standing on my doorstep without warning. The sight of her, with a mix of hope and sadness in her eyes, triggered a rush of emotions I thought I had tucked away. She looked different, tired and worn, but with a determination that was hard to ignore. It was a far cry from the vibrant woman I'd fallen for all those years ago. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice shaky. It wasn't a demand, but more of a plea, a request that stirred something inside me still tied to the past. I hesitated but eventually stepped aside, letting her in. The scent of her familiar perfume filled the air, a reminder of the life we'd shared. It was unsettling, yet oddly comforting. We sat down, tension thick between us, knowing this conversation was long overdue but something neither of us had wanted to face. "I've finished my therapy," Isabella began, her hands fidgeting in her lap, "and I've learned a lot about myself, about why I made those terrible choices." She looked up, searching my face for any sign of understanding. "I'm not asking for us to get back together. I know that's too much, but I need you to know I'm truly, deeply sorry for everything I put you through." Her words, though sincere, were hard for me to absorb. Part of me wanted to believe her, to take some comfort in the fact that she had grown and was owning up to her mistakes. But another part of me, the part still scarred from the pain, stayed guarded, protecting the fragile peace I had finally started to build. "I appreciate your apology," I said after a long silence, "and I'm glad you're finding your way through therapy. But, Isabella, I've moved on. At least I'm trying to." The conversation that followed was a delicate dance between regret and acceptance. Isabella opened up about the hard truths she'd uncovered about herself, about how her actions had shattered not just our marriage but her own sense of self. We spoke of what might have been, the what-ifs and maybes that had once defined us but no longer held any weight. It was a thread connecting our past to the separate futures we were now living. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the room, Isabella stood to leave. "I hope you find happiness," she said, her voice steadier than when she'd arrived. "You deserve it." Watching her walk away for the last time hit me harder than I expected. It marked the true end of our story, a story filled with love, betrayal, and eventual growth. Alone in the silence, I reflected on the closure we had both sought, and perhaps, in our own way, found. The weeks that followed were a testament to resilience. I dove into my interests, rediscovering passions that had been forgotten during the mess of our marriage. Photography, always a quiet hobby of mine, became a form of therapy, capturing moments of beauty in the mundane. Every photo felt like a step forward, a reminder that life was moving on. And so was I. My social circle slowly expanded, not with new faces but with old friends who re-entered my life, bringing laughter and companionship. We shared meals and stories, enjoying the kind of easy comfort that only comes from long-standing friendships. These moments, simple as they were, reminded me that there was joy to be found in starting over. One crisp evening, I found myself setting up my camera to capture the twilight skyline. As the city lights flickered to life like grounded stars, a sense of peace washed over me. It was a scene I had photographed countless times before, but this time it felt different. I was different. The heartache that had once consumed me had become just another chapter in my life, one part of a bigger, richer tapestry of experiences. I realized then that life isn't about avoiding the bruises or trying to keep from breaking. It's about healing from them, learning, and moving forward with a little more wisdom and a lot more hope. As the camera shutter clicked, capturing the perfect alignment of light and shadow, I knew I was ready. Ready to embrace whatever came next, free from the weight of the past and open to the possibilities of the future. As the weeks turned into months, my sense of independence grew stronger with each passing day. What had once been a life overshadowed by the chaos of my failed marriage slowly transformed into something steadier, more predictable. My job, which had always been a source of fulfillment, became a refuge, a place where I could focus on my work and rebuild my identity outside the painful wreckage of personal heartache. One evening, while sorting through some boxes I hadn't yet unpacked, I stumbled across our old travel journals. Each page took me back to the adventures Isabella and I had shared, all the places we had explored together. For a brief moment, I was transported back to those times of joy and discovery. But instead of feeling sorrow, I felt something different. Gratitude. Gratitude for the experiences that had shaped me and helped me become the person I am today. The healing process wasn't a straight line. Some days were harder than others, with waves of nostalgia that threatened to drag me back into the sadness. But I learned to ride those waves, seeing them not as setbacks, but as reminders of my capacity to love deeply, and now to move on just as deeply. What used to be quiet evenings filled with reflection or sadness gradually turned into something else. Active moments of growth and rediscovery. I finally signed up for a cooking class, something I had always wanted to do but never made time for. Each class brought new flavors, techniques, and a sense of joy I hadn't felt in a long time. The act of cooking with others, sharing the experience, introduced a new kind of happiness into my life. It was in those simmering pots and aromatic spices that I began to feel content again, and even the possibility of new friendships. One night, after an especially fun class, I invited a few classmates over for an impromptu dinner at my place. The evening was filled with laughter and shared stories, a stark contrast to the lonely nights I'd spent in solitude. Cooking for others brought a sense of fulfillment I hadn't realized I was missing, and their appreciation was a balm for my soul. During this time, I also rekindled my love for writing. I started a blog, combining my passion for cooking with reflections on life, loss, and the unexpected turns we all face. Writing became a form of therapy for me, a way to express the thoughts and feelings swirling in my mind. The response from readers, many of whom had gone through similar experiences, was incredibly positive. I found a community of support in the most unexpected place: the virtual world. As autumn gave way to winter, the colder days encouraged introspection and time spent in the warmth of my apartment. What had once been a space filled with painful memories had gradually turned into a cozy sanctuary. Books lined the shelves, the aroma of home-cooked meals filled the air, and the place finally started to feel like mine. I took pride in decorating and arranging my apartment in a way that reflected who I had become in this new chapter of my life. One chilly evening, as I sat by the window watching the snow gently fall, I realized how far I'd come. The pain that had once consumed me had receded, leaving behind lessons of resilience and growth. I no longer felt weighed down by the past. Instead, I felt lighter, like I could handle whatever came my way. The quiet scene outside, the snow falling softly, blanketing the world in white, seemed to mirror the peace I'd found within myself. This peace wasn't just about healing from heartbreak. It was about embracing the journey of life, with all its imperfections and surprises. I'd come to understand that every ending is also a beginning, and that navigating grief with patience and compassion leads to a deeper appreciation of the good things life has to offer. I no longer looked back in anger or regret. Instead, I saw my past with clear eyes, recognizing that my experiences had taught me invaluable lessons. They had shown me my own strength and revealed the unexplored possibilities waiting for me. As I watched the snow coat the world outside, I felt connected to the rhythms of life, to the cycles of loss and renewal that are part of the human experience. In that quiet moment, with the whisper of snow against the window, I knew I was ready to move forward, to embrace the unknown, and to allow myself to live and love fully again. I was no longer burdened by the weight of the past, but inspired by the possibilities of tomorrow. Winter came and went, and as spring arrived, the world around me seemed to awaken with new life, mirroring the renewal I felt inside. The longer days and warmer air urged me outdoors, reconnecting me with the simple pleasures that had once brought me so much joy. One Saturday morning, I decided to revisit a hiking trail that Isabella and I had often explored together. As I walked the familiar path, memories of our past adventures floated through my mind. But instead of sadness, I felt a deep sense of peace. The beauty of the forest, with its fresh leaves and the sounds of birds chirping, reminded me of life's cycles, of how things end and begin again, and how the resilience I found in nature now mirrored the resilience I had found in myself. During one of those hikes, I crossed paths with Maya, a fellow nature lover. We met by chance, both of us pausing at a scenic overlook to take in the view. Conversation flowed easily, and her company brought an unexpected comfort, mixed with a refreshing energy. Maya had a passion for the outdoors, and her vibrant spirit added a new dimension to these hikes that I had never experienced before. Over the next few weeks, our chance encounters on the trail turned into planned hikes. The more time I spent with Maya, the more I grew to appreciate her outlook on life, her optimism, her ability to find joy in even the smallest things. It was contagious, and being around her was a breath of fresh air. We began to share stories about our lives, the good times, the hardships. With Maya, I felt a connection that existed in the present, free from the shadows of my past. As spring turned to summer, we started exploring more challenging trails, pushing ourselves to new heights, both physically and emotionally. Hiking with her not only strengthened my body but also built up my emotional resilience. The combination of physical effort and the tranquility of nature became the perfect setting for self-discovery and the development of a friendship that seemed to promise more with each passing day. One hike in particular stood out. We reached the summit just in time to catch a breathtaking sunset. As we sat there, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink, Maya turned to me and said, "Isn't it amazing how no two sunsets are the same? Just like every day, every experience is unique and beautiful in its own way." Her words struck me deeply. They reminded me of how far I had come, from the darkest days of despair to this moment of genuine happiness. It was a journey filled with countless sunsets and sunrises, each one different, each one a step away from the pain of the past and closer to the possibility of a brighter future. Our summer of hiking adventures culminated in a weekend camping trip to a national park we had both wanted to visit. From setting up camp together to sharing stories by the campfire, the experience brought us closer than ever. Being out in nature, far from the distractions of everyday life, allowed us to open up about our hopes and dreams. Sitting by the fire, under the stars, I felt a wave of optimism for what life could still offer. Maya became more than just a friend. She became a key part of my healing process. Through her, I rediscovered my ability to trust, to open my heart, and to love again. She showed me that while the scars of the past may never completely disappear, they do fade. Those scars became less about the pain they represented and more about the resilience they symbolized. As the summer drew to a close, I realized my feelings for Maya had grown beyond friendship. The idea of exploring something deeper between us was both exciting and a little scary. But with the lessons I had learned and the new perspective I had gained, I felt ready to take that step. The end of that summer marked more than just a change in seasons. It marked a personal transformation. The man who had once seen the world through the lens of betrayal and loss was now viewing it through one of hope and new beginnings. Maya and I stood on the threshold of a new chapter, uncertain but filled with the potential for growth and shared adventures. As autumn approached, with its cooler days and vibrant colors, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for life's unexpected twists. The journey from heartbreak to healing had been long and difficult, but it had led me to a place of greater understanding and a renewed appreciation for life's constant evolution. Autumn brought a refreshing crispness to the air, and as the leaves turned amber and gold, so too did my life shift into something richer and more fulfilling than I had ever imagined during my darkest days. My relationship with Maya deepened, built on shared experiences and a mutual understanding that was both comforting and exhilarating. We found joy in the simplest things, like walking through the park, the crunch of fallen leaves under our feet, our conversations drifting between the everyday and the profound. Maya's way of seeing the world inspired me. She encouraged me to engage more deeply with my passions and even pushed me to reconnect with old friends I had neglected in the aftermath of my marriage. One cool October evening, Maya and I hosted a dinner party together. A significant step for me, blending my old life with the new. It was the first time I introduced Maya to the close friends who had supported me through my hardest times. The night was filled with laughter, storytelling, and the warmth of friendship. Watching Maya interact with my friends, fitting so naturally into the fabric of my life, filled me with a profound sense of peace and happiness. As the season progressed, I began to feel more grounded in who I was becoming. My sense of self, once so uncertain, grew stronger with each passing day. I started volunteering more, giving back to the community that had supported me when I needed it most. Maya and I even joined a local environmental conservation group, spending our weekends out in nature. But this time, we weren't just enjoying its beauty, we were actively working to preserve it. The work felt symbolic, reflecting my own recovery, repairing, nurturing, and healing, just as we were doing for the landscapes we cared for. At the same time, I began to revisit my professional goals. With Maya's constant encouragement, I found the courage to seek new opportunities at work, eventually earning a promotion that came with new challenges and responsibilities. It felt like my career, much like my personal life, was moving forward in ways I hadn't anticipated. It was proof of how far I had come, of the growth I was experiencing in every area of my life. As the holidays approached, a time that used to be filled with painful memories, I realized that this year was different. Maya and I decided to create our own traditions, blending elements from our pasts to form something uniquely ours. On Thanksgiving, we volunteered at a local shelter, serving meals to those less fortunate. It was a humbling experience, one that reminded us both of how much we had to be grateful for, especially the people in our lives and the blessings we now shared. When Christmas neared, we decorated our apartment together, combining old ornaments from our childhoods with new ones that represented the life we were building. Each decoration held a story or a hope for the future. We even hosted a small holiday gathering, inviting both our families to meet for the first time. It was a bit awkward at first, but by the end of the night, there was a warmth in the room that hinted at the beginnings of a new, blended family taking shape. On Christmas Eve, Maya and I exchanged gifts. Each present was chosen with care, reflecting the deep understanding we had of one another. My gift to her was a scrapbook I had made, filled with photos and memories of our adventures together, a tangible reflection of our journey so far. Her gift to me was a set of vintage cameras, reigniting my love for photography and symbolizing her unwavering support for my creative passions. As we sat by the fire that night, sipping hot cocoa and watching the snow fall outside, I took a moment to reflect on how far I'd come in just a year. The pain of my divorce had faded into a distant memory, replaced by the joy and love that now filled my days. I realized then that healing happens in its own time, in its own way. The journey might start in darkness, but it doesn't have to end there. Each step forward, each new experience had helped me rebuild. The past was no longer something I needed to escape from, but a foundation I could build on. When the clock struck midnight, signaling the start of a new year, I felt ready. ready to continue this journey with Maya by my side, ready to face whatever the future had in store. Most importantly, I was ready to live fully, to love deeply, and to embrace each new moment with gratitude and courage. The new year promised fresh possibilities, and for the first time in a long while, I was eager to meet them head-on, no longer defined by my past, but enriched by the experiences that had shaped me. The arrival of the new year brought a palpable sense of anticipation and renewal. With Maya beside me, each day felt like it was brimming with promise. We even began planning a trip abroad, an adventure to celebrate our relationship and explore the world together. The excitement of researching destinations, booking flights, and imagining all the places we'd visit filled us with a shared sense of purpose. Felt like the start of something new, adventurous, hopeful, and, most importantly, together. As winter transitioned into spring, our trip plans became more concrete. We decided on Italy, a country neither of us had visited, but both of us had always dreamed of exploring. The idea of walking the ancient streets of Rome, savoring authentic Italian dishes in Tuscany, and watching the sun set over the Amalfi Coast filled us with anticipation. This wasn't just a vacation. It was a celebration of how far we had come and the new life we were building. Finally, the day of our departure arrived. We packed our bags with essentials, a few luxuries, and an overwhelming sense of excitement. The long flight only heightened the anticipation, and as we touched down in Rome, the reality of our adventure hit us. The ancient city, with its timeless beauty, seemed like the perfect place to begin this new chapter of our lives. Our days in Italy were a blend of awe-inspiring sights and leisurely moments, with the occasional unexpected adventure thrown in. We marveled at the grandeur of the Colosseum, wandered through the Vatican museums, and tossed coins into the Trevi Fountain, laughing at the joy of discovering something new with each step. In Tuscany, we rented a charming villa overlooking the vineyards, where the days were spent exploring and the evenings were filled with wine tastings and home-cooked meals under the stars. The trip was more than just a getaway. It was a testament to how far I'd come from the person I once was. It was proof of my resilience, my ability to love again, and the hope that life can, indeed, offer new beginnings after heartache. One evening, as we sat on the terrace of our villa watching the sun sink below the horizon, Maya turned to me, her eyes glowing with the warm light of the twilight sky. "This trip," she said softly, "is more than just a journey through Italy. It's a testament to how far we've come, both individually and together." I nodded, taking her hand in mine. "It's about moving forward," I said, "not forgetting the past, but building on it. We're creating something new, something beautiful." As our time in Italy continued, it became clear that we weren't just falling in love with the country's beauty, but also deepening our connection with each other. We shared stories of our pasts, not with regret, but as narratives that had ultimately led us to one another. With every shared story, every comfortable silence, our bond became stronger, more profound. When we reached the Amalfi Coast, the breathtaking cliffs meeting the turquoise waters took our breath away. It was there, in a secluded cove we discovered on one of our hikes, that I realized I didn't just love Maya, I needed her. She wasn't just a part of my healing process anymore. She had become an essential part of me, my partner in every way that mattered. On our last night in Italy, sitting by the sea with the gentle waves lapping at the shore, I took a deep breath and spoke from my heart. "Maya," I began, "these past months, these adventures, have shown me so much about the world, about myself, and about us. I can't imagine my life without you. You've helped me heal. You've brought joy back into my life, and I love you deeply." Maya smiled, her face illuminated by the fading light. "I love you too," she replied, her voice soft but sure. "And I can't wait to see where our journey takes us next." We returned home with full hearts and renewed spirits. Our trip had been more than just a physical journey through beautiful landscapes. It had been a spiritual and emotional pilgrimage that brought us closer than ever before. We came back with a collection of memories, photos, and experiences that would nourish our love for years to come. As spring turned into summer, our relationship continued to blossom. We found joy in the simple, everyday moments. A shared cup of coffee in the morning, evening walks through the park, and the quiet companionship that filled the spaces between activities. Summer bloomed around us, its warmth touching every part of our lives. Maya and I spent weekends exploring local farmers markets, attending outdoor concerts, and hosting small gatherings for friends and family. Each event felt like a celebration of the life we were building together, filled with laughter and the comfort of true companionship. Our home became a lively hub, always open to friends and family, who brought with them stories, laughter, and dishes to share. Maya and I thrived in this atmosphere, realizing that our love grew not only in our private moments but also in the community we nurtured around us. As my birthday approached, Maya surprised me with a weekend getaway to a lakeside cabin. The setting was perfect, serene, with only the sound of lapping water and rustling leaves. It was there, amid nature's calm, that Maya and I started to talk more seriously about our future together. About commitments, about what it truly meant to be partners in the long journey of life. Sitting by the fire pit one evening, with the flames dancing in the night, Maya took my hand. Her eyes, reflecting the firelight, were steady but full of emotion. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice tinged with hesitation, "about us, about the future. We've both been through so much before we found each other. But I believe in us. I believe in what we have. I think it's time we take the next step." Her words lingered in the air, mingling with the smoke from the fire. The next step. My heart, once so guarded and hesitant about future commitments, felt ready now, fortified by the love and trust we had built. "I think so too," I replied, the decision feeling natural, like a deep breath of fresh air. "Let's do it. Let's move forward together." The decision to deepen our commitment, to blend our lives more completely, was both thrilling and profound. The rest of that weekend was filled with joy and planning. Discussions about potential homes, the idea of marriage, and the future we would create together. What had once seemed uncertain now felt like an exciting adventure waiting to unfold. When we returned from our getaway, we began the practical steps toward this next chapter. We started looking for a new place to live, a home that would be truly ours, not just a space one of us had invited the other into. Each house we visited became a canvas for our future, a place we could fill with our lives, our love, and our memories. Through the stresses of house hunting and decision-making, our relationship grew even stronger. We learned to navigate challenges together, just as we celebrated each small victory. Every step forward felt like an affirmation of our commitment. Eventually, we found the perfect home, a cozy house with a welcoming porch and a large backyard, perfect for future summer barbecues and gatherings with loved ones. Moving in together was a labor of love. Each box unpacked and each picture hung a symbol of the life we were creating. The house quickly became a home, filled with the warmth of our shared dreams. As we settled into our new life, I often found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us to this point. It had been a path filled with heartache, healing, and transformation, but every step had led me to this place, to Maya, to a future filled with hope. From the depths of heartbreak and betrayal, I had walked a path of healing and growth that led me to Maya and a future I never thought possible. Life had thrown its share of challenges, but it had also presented moments of profound happiness and fulfillment. Once our new home was set up, Maya and I celebrated with a housewarming party, inviting our closest friends and family to share in the joy of this new chapter. The house quickly filled with laughter, music, and the sound of clinking glasses. Every toast felt like a nod to our future and the life we were building together. It was an evening filled with warmth, celebration, and the tangible presence of the community and love that had supported us along the way. As autumn returned, coloring the world in rich shades of red and gold, Maya and I took evening walks through our new neighborhood, breathing in the crisp air and listening to the crunch of leaves beneath our feet. These quiet moments, simple yet so meaningful, reminded me of how much had changed. I had not only found love but a true partner in Maya, someone with whom I could share every facet of life. Our relationship, strengthened by the challenges we had faced and the joys we had embraced, was proof that second chances are not only possible but beautiful. During one of our autumn walks, as golden leaves fell around us, I made another life-changing decision. Stopping beneath the canopy of trees, I proposed to Maya, offering her a ring that symbolized my commitment, love, and hope for our continued journey together. Her acceptance came with tears of joy and a promise that we would face the future hand in hand. Our engagement wasn't just a promise of marriage. It was a vow to continue supporting each other, growing together, and cherishing the love we had found. In the months that followed, wedding planning became part of our lives. From choosing a venue to selecting a date, we approached each decision as a reflection of our shared values and personalities. Every detail was crafted to make our wedding day a true celebration of the unique bond we shared. When the day finally arrived, it was everything we had hoped for and more. Set against the backdrop of early spring, with friends and family gathered to bear witness, we exchanged vows that came from the deepest parts of our hearts. The day was filled with laughter, happy tears, and dancing. A perfect beginning to our life as husband and wife. As newlyweds, Maya and I continued to build on the solid foundation we had created. We traveled to new places, explored hobbies together, and supported each other's dreams and aspirations. Our marriage became a partnership in every sense, founded on mutual respect, unwavering love, and a deep understanding of each other's needs and desires. Looking back on my journey, from the pain of betrayal that once seemed to define me to the joy of a love that transformed me, I couldn't help but feel overwhelmed with gratitude. The road had been long and at times difficult, but it had led me to a happiness I once thought out of reach. My story, with all its trials and triumphs, reminded me that life is unpredictable, but also full of opportunities for growth and renewal. Through seasons of heartache and seasons of joy, I had learned that life is not just about enduring. It's about thriving. It's not just about survival, but about finding deeper meaning in every experience we collect along the way. As Maya and I looked toward the future, we didn't see a clear or predictable path ahead, but that was okay. Life's journey was something we were eager to navigate together, with all its surprises and certainties. With love and commitment as our guides, we were ready to continue exploring the vast, beautiful landscape of life, confident that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. And so, our story continues. A narrative of love rediscovered, lives intertwined, and an ongoing quest for happiness and meaning in the ever-changing tapestry of life.